Ladies and gentlemen, we are now live in prime time on the brightest lights, the biggest stage, the only platform where all music and wrestling matters. Sportswire Radio here, and boy, do we have what's about to be an all-out war mixed with a Day of Atonement, and maybe we'll throw in a little OGTS, and we'll talk about that here. Even though you've seen our guest a few different times in the background, but now it's her time to shine. It's her time to say what she wants to say here in prime time. She's going to talk about the all-out war match coming up next Saturday. She's going to talk about the DHC, and she's going to talk about why the Hellhound is going to be back on top. And you might have seen some different things, but we're starting anew. We're starting fresh, and that's why our guest is going to tell us all of that. And plus, we'll may even talk about maybe some other things, some other topics. I'll certainly try to stay on her good side because I don't want that kendo stick right across my head. The mouth is still feeling it from the dentist last week. And plus, I've also got even a few surprises. No, Joe Starr's not coming on here to cut another promo, even though he's in a few of them this week. No one else is coming on here. This is our guest time to shine. But in the famous words of Def Leppard frontman Joe Elliott, let's get rock, baby, because I see our chat is here. I even see somebody here who I think was supposed to be in a tournament of death, and we'll talk about that maybe later on. But it is time now to start this show off here in style and bring you a heat wave because we've got a Hellhound who's right here in front of us for the first official time on Sportswire Radio, the number one global radio station where all music and wrestling matters. So with that, without further ado, here on the Sports Report, number one Gamble Sports Show. She is a part of the most dominant and dangerous faction of all, underground wrestling. She's been on top, and she's now simply put, the Hellhound. Reya, my friend, how are we doing?
Good. I don't know really how to respond to that kind of an intro.
I know I'll make you feel better. I've had LA Guns frontman Phil Lewis look at me like, "Are we getting on with it?" I've had different reactions. I had famously a guy, Riley Bates, who wanted to do his own intro. Rhino was ready to run through a wall. Jake Dvorak always says he's reminded of it at like 2 o'clock in the morning while trying to get some sleep. I mean, Torrance Banks is the one who encouraged this. So when you see Torrance Banks again, if you do in Massachusetts, you can tell him that while you may or may not like the intro. But yeah, it runs the spectrum. But I'm happy to have you here officially. I know you've been in the background in different segments, but there's a lot to talk about here with you. And I'm really excited, Reya, because next Saturday, NEW returns. We return here with an all-out war, and I've heard from a number of different people recently about that, but I want to give you now, Reya, the opportunity, because for those that are listening and watching here in prime time on the brightest lights, the biggest stage, the platform that you, the DHC, and NEW most certainly helped build, Sportswire Radio, Talk to me about what you're going to do next Saturday to win the All Out War Rumble match.
Well, I'm definitely gonna be going in a lot more focused, and I think there's a lot of confidence in the DHC going into this match. I mean, there's less than 20 people in the match, and
Yep.
all 5 members of the DHC are in this match. We are we have a high chance of winning the match.
Yeah, that's a
A
it's a great
lot of confidence is high right now for the DHC. We have multiple members who have won the All Out War match before. Like I have won before to face Jake, and Jake has won it. I'm pretty sure Sane has won it as well. So
yeah.
there's a lot of confidence in the DHC going into All Out War. Not just that match, but I get a chance to win back the Hardcore Championship.
Yeah, that's a couple of things. I'll come back to the Hardcore Championship in a second, but you said something interesting, and I want to talk about that because you made a point that I think a lot of people are going to be focusing on next Saturday, and that there's 5 of you, and there's something like 18 people that are going to be in this. So your odds of winning the All Out War are almost like 30%. So you're talking about a really high batting average here. And does that make you feel, especially from your vantage point, as somebody who's won the All Out War and as somebody that's been here and done this, kind of that confidence that you need to kind of almost start anew here coming up next Saturday?
I definitely have a lot of confidence going into this. It's the one thing to compete multiple times, but another thing to have won it before. Like we know the ins and outs, and I think all wrestling fans have seen how much a group who are on the same page can just dominate a match like this. Like you see 2 people who aren't even teammates can like change the whole trajectory of a Rumble match. Now just imagine if we can get all 5 members of the DHC in at one time, it would be near impossible to eliminate all of us. You have
That's
to literally get another 5 or 6 people to be in the Rumble at the same time to match our strength, and then just hope they all work together, and they are not going to, because there is no one as united as the DHC is.
Yeah, I think that's really what this comes down to. Is it's a number. Anytime you're in these things, and I've been doing this a long time. You've been also in the ring a long time, and it's a numbers game. So at the end of the day, there's 5 of you. So almost mathematically, it's a guarantee that some of you are going to be in the ring at the same time, and maybe even 2, 3, and 4 of you at the same time. But at the very least 2. And I think that going into next Saturday, that's what it's all about. It's a numbers game, and it basically, this is what it's about. And I think that your experience winning the All Out War, talk to me about how that's something you're going to focus on and maybe rely upon in your experience compared to some of your other opponents who are going to be in this match coming up next Saturday.
Well, I know what it takes to stay in the match. I know what the weak points are. A lot of bigger people are going to be confident in throwing out a smaller person like me, but I'm a lot trickier to get out. I'm a lot faster than a lot of people. I know how, I can hold on to the ropes a lot like better. I don't have I'm light. I'm quick, so it's going to be harder to like keep me out of the match. I can, like, a bigger guy holding on to that top rope. He's going to fall eventually. Someone like me, it's going to be a lot harder. I'm typically, a risk taker with the ropes and shit. So, getting someone like me out, I'm used to being on those ropes. It's going to be a lot harder.
Yeah, that's a great point because in these matches, there's no question that some would say, oh, the size, that's what does it. But it's your agility, it's your quickness, it's your ability to do different things and move to different places in the ring that's going to give you that advantage. Whereas some of maybe your bigger opponents may not have that opportunity to do. And I think that that's something that you're going to rely on here heavily. And if you are here on Instagram, do me a favor, go give a follow to NEW. Check them out on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Patreon page. I'm a subscriber. I hope you join me too in doing so. And also, we'll put the YouTube link up here shortly. And, I think this is real. I know everybody in the group has a stake in how important this is. But I feel like for you, Reya, this might be the most important for anybody here in the group because we know your struggles of late, unfortunately. And we know that how big this would be for you to win the all out war because of just, I don't know about this levels of doubt, but there's definitely been a struggle from what we've seen the second half of the year so far versus the first half or previous years. And do you feel almost of all the members in the group that maybe this is why this match coming up for you to win the all out war is so much more important?
It is definitely important to me, especially as somebody who has won it before. There's a level of expectation of that I should be able to perform well in this match. I gotta live up to that. I just lost the hardcore championship, and that was a heavy toll. Because
Yeah.
I just whether you want to debate or not, Stain had to cheat for me to keep the belt and to just immediately lose it. That doesn't look too good on me. And then you know I have a chance to get that back, but then I also had a chance at the Northeast Championship, and that also did not go according to plan. So I think I have a lot of stake of trying to get back into it right now,
Sure.
and nothing to do that more than the All Out War match because that can just massively change everything for your career. Everyone wants to get to Starcast. Everyone wants that main event. And this is the one match that guarantees that. You can go
Absolutely.
from jobber to main eventer in a second if you just have the timing right. And I had that timing right before, and I think I can do it again.
I think you got a great shot. There's no question that you have as good a shot as anybody because you have the experience. And I think that that's a big key in this. And let me ask you this question. I know it's been a minute since we've seen everybody out in the ring, and we're going to certainly rectify that next Saturday. But you talked about the pressure. You talked about obviously expectations that you've put on yourself. And obviously, understandably so. You've had a lot of success, and you definitely deserve all that success. But how much have you thought about these last several weeks in this break that we've had? And how has that been? And whether it's self reflection, whether it's been whatever you've thought about that's going to lead you into what we'll see next Saturday, what has it been like for you since we last saw you out there in the ring?
For anyone who knows me in the ring, I'm very much very hard on myself. So, I did not take these losses, well. I'm not like you see some people like Spade, for example, and Joe. If they lose a match, they get very angry at the other person. It's their fault. On the other hand, I take a lot of personal accountability, and so I've been like really hyper focused on changing that. I know it's my fault that I lost, and I know that I can change my current path in NEW.
Yeah, you definitely can. There's no question that you have that opportunity coming up next Saturday. And if you'd like to give Ray a follow on Instagram, I would really hope that you do so because there's a lot of stuff that we're going to be talking about over the next hour. And I hope that you join me in supporting Ray and all the great talents that are out there, especially in NEW. But it's funny that you mentioned your brother and you mentioned Joe Star. I'm going to certainly talk a lot about Joe Star in a few minutes, but you've had certainly an interesting history with your brother. Your brother's been here with you again for the past several months. And what has that been like now that you and your brother are reunited once again?
It definitely is a confidence boost. I think about the negative things we have done. There's a lot of he turned his back on me. Then when I joined DHC, I was very much vengeance oriented. Getting back at a lot of people when I was a pushover before, and to have him back on my side. I think I've taken care of a lot of that business from before, and I've been able to be, a lot more focused this season on, taking care of matters at hand for the betterment of DHC and not just, petty little gripes with people before. And we got the chance to officially be tag team champions together, which is like a huge moment for the two of us, who grew up watching WWE together to be, tag team champions in, the 2K video games when we were like teenagers to now be able to hold them together in NEW is such like it's a big moment. I think Spade, he told me, going into that match that like this was like a mania moment for him. If we can manage to hold the tag team titles together, this is almost as good as like main eventing Star Clash for him.
And especially what the history that you and him have went through, the back and forth with each other. And then to have that moment a few months ago, I mean, that's gotta obviously be one of those moments. I know you're obviously a part of the biggest feud, shows in NEW history. That I know, you've had some really big moments, but to have that, and it's funny that you talked about that, in brothers sisters being tag team champions, and in all of wrestling, not just in NEW or in the underground. It's such a rare feat. I had on a team, we're talking about maybe about 4 or 5 months ago, in the Independents for a company, Legit Alternative Wrestling, and they had a brother sister combo that were tag team champions. But it's so far few in between, and it's kind of a pretty cool feat that what you and your brother accomplished, because there's just in wrestling so few of, if you go back in the history books, of brother sister teams that have won a championship. That's a pretty cool feat.
Yeah, and it's even cooler to think about. It's an even more impressive feat when you think about like the fact of last season going from beating the shit out of each
I
other
know, adversaries
to now on the same
now.
page.
Well, listen, if you would have asked me 4 months ago if Joe Starr would be, calling all of you family, and he's a big part of the DHC, and I would have said, I don't know about that, but I mean, so I guess you never know. I mean, you just never know out there, and you and your brother were able to accomplish that moment. And like I said, it's so far few in between if you look in the history books in wrestling anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's the underground, it doesn't matter if it's the pros, the indies, whatever it is at this point. I just label it all as wrestling, and I think that that's what's a pretty cool feat that not many people are going to be able to say, and you were able to do that.
Yeah, it definitely was a lot different than what you see in other companies, and I think that's like usually because of the divide between male and female
Yeah.
competitors, and going in underground, backyard, and like different style wrestling that's not trying to be you don't see that in WWE, where like in a lot of like underground, backyard, and different promotions you will see like there is no divide. You see so much more. Everyone can compete together,
Yeah,
and
I
that's what
agree.
makes it so much of an easier chance. Like you you won't see like AEW or WWE has like a woman as like their world champion, but an underground company, I
Impact.
would
Yeah.
be undisputed world champion, and that's like kind of like the cooler matches. You maybe you see intergender matches in WWE occasionally, but there's more like there would be like James Ellsworth versus Becky Lynch, and it'd just be kind of like
Yeah,
a
I
gimmick
mean, you don't
shit.
see it. Yeah, it's not treated the same way, and that's why I'm a believer, Reya. To me, wrestling's wrestling. I look at it like, listen, I don't care if you're going out there and competing. I just want to see it, and I think that that's why we love what everybody does here in the underground, what everybody does here at NEW, and I put the picture up there of obviously the DHC and Joe Starr is an interesting guy, and I want to talk about Joe Starr before I get to the chat. I got a couple things for you, but if you would have asked me, like I said about 3 months ago, he was on here and he was kidnapped, by Justin Abelson or Be Insane and Jake Dvorak. I'm about to say Justin. That guy caught myself. Be Insane because he would certainly maybe go insane over me if I said that. But Be Insane and Jake Dvorak at the time, and they kidnapped Joe Starr. And since then, well, he's been a huge part of the group, and he's certainly unleashed the Joe Starr that nobody's thought we've seen. And I mean, what's that been like? I mean, seeing him as a part of he's called you all family, and he's talked about how family and the DHC are going to run thing. The DHC, he's talked about here what's going to happen in the all-out war. He talked about the numbers game in his most recent promo. And I got to ask you, I mean, what has Joe Starr brought to this group?
It's usually DHC hovers around 3 or 4 people, so getting a fifth person is definitely beneficial to us. Anything that helps with the mind games aspect is definitely beneficial, and taking him away from his friends and having him join us is obviously something that's messing with a lot of the roster. You never know who can torn and join the DHC. I definitely think we have brought out the best in Joe Starr. I gotta say he's doing his best right now. Same as Be Insane and Spade. The other 2 most recent members.
Oh my
They've been
God, what
doing
Be
their
Insane
best
has
right now.
done. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more about Be Insane. I mean, this man is a machine. What he's done these last 3 and 4 months, defeating multiple men at a time. I know he doesn't have the undisputed championship at the moment. I'll get to that later. But I mean, what he's done. I mean, now we're seeing him in different places outside of NEW. We're just seeing this man he's found who he really is, and that's no longer trying to be with the fans. That's no longer trying to appease people. No, he's just using his size, he's using his strength, and he's using who he is to be at the top. And I think that what we've seen from him, to me, is the biggest example of what anyone can do in being a part of your group, the
Yeah,
DHC.
I mean, all these people. It reminds me of when I joined the DHC, and when we went from Redux to the DHC. That mindset switch that you get when you join the DHC, when you see what we see, it changes your career, it changes everything. And the same thing that happened with me, a couple of seasons ago, you're seeing that for people like Stain, for people like Joe. Like Spade as well has done, I would take his best performances this season. I would say Joe's doing his best this season. And saying, I a lot of people think he was never gonna lose the world championship with the level of performance he was doing.
Yep.
The DHC just, it changes you when you open your mind. And usually for people like me and Joe, who is not willing to see the truth at first, once you are finally given and see everything for what it is, everything changes for you.
Well, we could definitely see that for sure. We can clearly see that the DHC is looking ahead to a really big all-out war coming up next Saturday. All-out war 11 is upon us, and if you are out there, please support NEW. We've put up some DHC main event action here not too long ago, and NEW is getting ready to return. So please follow them on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all those great other platforms. And we are here with the Hellhound, Reya Silver, who has had quite a dominant and decorated career here in NEW and really all of underground wrestling. We are very honored to have her here on Sportswire Radio and to getting us ready for NEW's next show and their return. Plus, we'll talk about some other really cool things that the Hellhound was a part of. And, I just saw Kuma out there, and I know, Kuma, you definitely have Kuma on your mind because we kind of alluded to that hardcore championship. And I know that you're going to take out some of that that frustration, some of that pressure that you've put on yourself toward Kuma, undoubtedly next Saturday.
I I'm so focused going into that match, and there you would have to throw a major wrench in the way to distract me from the hardcore championship. I think I was a little distracted before, but you're gonna see a focused Reya Silva in that match. I have beaten him before, and I'm certain that I can beat him in this tiebreaker match. You know, and he did beat me last time. I can openly admit that he was the better wrestler that day. But the Golden Boy is going to be coming up second place yet again.
You said something interesting, and we'll get to the chat in a few minutes. I know a lot of people want to talk to you, but you now are in a rubber match. And, I've done a lot of sports in the past. I've had a lot of athletes and coaches, and these are the most tense, the most important ones because it's 1-1. Now, this is the rubber match. This is where forget about what we're seeing here the last time you and him were in the ring. Now, it's basically this is to decide who is the true hardcore champion, who is the person that's going to be the most hardcore here coming up. And I mean, do you feel the same way? Because I mean, these rubber matches are always to me. I mean, you've been in so many big matches in your career. You've done so many different things. We talked about you winning the All Out War. We know you've been a part of the most viewed shows and matches in NEW history. But like, this is where you're going to remember. This is almost to settle a score, if that makes sense, in a grudge match.
This is I view this match differently than our first two matches.
Okay.
A lot of that was petty bullshit. A lot of it was me going after him on behalf of the DHC. You know, trying to just teach him a lesson. And then in this match you're showing here was to take the briefcase so then he would no longer be an issue for the DHC. And a match I was very confident in because I've never lost a Singapore cane match prior to this moment.
And you beat him already on top of that. You have a victory over him. So you've got to be feeling, super confident going into this.
I was confident last time, It was a match type that I have never lost before, and I lost. And this time, it's not all the same stakes. It's not about taking the briefcase away from him. This is no petty bullshit for this one, I would say. I'll be facing my former friend in a match that's purely about that belt. No DHC drama, no, nothing with taking away Joe or holding Chima or the tag team titles. This is purely about taking that championship. And I think that's going to keep me a lot more focused. There's not going to be me going out there and playing any weird mind games with him. I am focused. I want the championship. I want to rectify the fact that I lost that belt.
And this has been your division. I think that's another part of it. This has been your division. We know Kuma may be the golden boy, but this is not his division. This is not his element. And you want to prove to everybody that I'm the true hardcore champion. This is my division. I'm the boss of this division. I think that's also a part of it. It's not just, and again, I know you just wrestled Jake, obviously, the last time you're in the ring. And, I know you've obviously wrestled and competed for the tag championship, about the undisputed championship. But I think this is a little different in the sense that this is your division. This has been your division. And you want to show Kuma that, no, this is yours and you're the true hardcore champion. And this is your division. It's going to be for as long as you want it to be.
Oh, it's definitely been a key part of my career, and I've been a key part of that belt. So, like I've been the hardcore champion 3 times. I have had some iconic matches with that. So anyone, when it comes to me in a hardcore championship match, it is hard for anyone to focus on, Kuma as champion, you know, when I am in the picture yet again. And, we have a lot of really hardcore wrestlers in NEW, with Jay. Um,
Absolutely. How about Doc Holliday? Yeah, that rings a bell, I'm sure.
yeah, he rang my bell with that fire driver, but,
I brought that
I
up.
have a lot of respect for Doc. We have, Gabe. We have,
Yeah.
Spade has definitely, cut his teeth in
Oh my
hardcore
goodness, what
matches.
Spade and Joe Star did feels like lifetimes ago to each other.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, Be Insane is now starting to test the waters in that. I mean, you could even listen. I see the wink and a nod referee there. Christopher Black. I mean, there's so many of you all can mix it up. This is not just okay. We're gonna put some toy Legos out there and some styrofoam chairs, and we're gonna just we'll act it out. No, all of you in some form or another. When Surge was here, certainly you have quite a history with him. I mean, so there's no question that almost so many of you here in NEW, you all can mix it up in this element, but you especially, because you've been the hardcore champion, you've been kind of almost intertwined with this championship so much. I kind of feel like this is your opportunity to reaffirm that this is your division here next Saturday.
Yeah. As much as, there's a lot of people who want that belt, who sees themselves as the most hardcore in NEW, but, I definitely have the honor of saying I am, the one who's iconic for being the hardcore champion. And, I do gotta say, I started off this season saying I don't respect my former friend, torn enemy, Kuma. But he has a chance to change that. He's managed to beat me. Last time in our first match, I told him, be serious, and he lost. He was fully himself, and he beat me. So this is definitely, it's not just about me taking back that hardcore championship. It's definitely, about the fact that the disrespect that showed Kuma, and if he can finally win or lose on that respect that I used to be sort of feel for towards pretty much all my opponents. If you gave me a fight, I'll show you respect. That was gone when the Diamond Reya Silva turned to the Hellhound, and I'm excited to see because he stepped up his game. If he can finally fully own my respect.
That's a great point. But I've noticed, and I have no doubt that you're going to certainly reaffirm those things, and we're very excited about that. And I'll come back to that. But I've noticed though the last couple of matches, you have certainly been the hell out. You have done so many amazing things in your career. Totally got all that, and I respect everything you've done out there. But what's with this almost like self-doubt out there? There's been at times you couldn't finish it, you couldn't get the job done. We've seen that here a couple different times. We saw that play out in the match with Jake. Even Jake kind of had like he could have put the match away, on at least a few other occasions. And is there something that's bothering you that you can't get the job done or can't finish something? What's going on there? Because I think a lot of people have been kind of wondering about this here going into next Saturday.
I I think just I've always been one to help the DHC cheat to win the matches, but I've been able to really stand on my own. And I think, the fact that no interference, no bullshit, I lost a hardcore championship really, stuck out to me. And then, especially following the fact that, I didn't post, saying what's going to come out there and save my ass. So to feel like I had to be carried to keep the belt just to lose it, that kind of that stung. And then in that match with Jake, I felt like I was really close to finally winning the Northeast Championship, a title I've never won.
I know it's a
And
little bit.
Stain was a little slow on the count. And it's kind of the thing, a moment in wrestling can impact everything. So,
Yeah.
would Jake have kicked out if it wasn't for that hesitation? Would I have won? We don't know what would have happened there. We just know that there was the hesitation. So Jake did indeed kick out, whether he was going to or not before, we don't know. And he ended up walking out victorious. And that kind of stung more after the whole thing with the hardcore championship, then to be that a little bit of uncertainty with that finish kind of just conformed with me that, like, I really, you don't need a championship to be on top, but it
Yeah, I
definitely
know. I,
conforms.
I agree with that. I
I
mean,
need
listen,
a belt right now.
but I think that that's a point that you really made that's interesting is that what you said a few minutes ago of that you almost kind of want to stand on your own and do things. And, we've seen you such a part of the DHC these past couple of seasons, but rather you want to show maybe not even the DHC, but to everybody else out there that this is why you've been on top in NEW. This is why you've accomplished all those things. And I thought that that was fascinating that you said that you want to stand on your own almost in a sense.
I want to. I like standing with DHC, but when it comes to the victory, I almost of late don't care. Maybe it's like changing me this season, but as it's gone on, I don't. I want to be able to prove I can win the match. I don't, as much as it's helpful to have the cheap win and it's good in the moment. Obviously, I did not want a cheap win over Jake, but would it have been helpful to cheat against Kuma as well? Maybe. Maybe I could have won, but like I really, after being carried to victory, and that's what it felt like to me in my match against Gabe, I really needed, at least right now, I need to win on my own to prove to myself that I have what it takes and that I deserved to hold that championship those 3 times. It's like I don't need the help.
Well, I think those are things that we're all going to be watching here. And there's no question that we're very excited to see what's going to take place this Saturday. I hope you can see what I can see by hitting the sub button for NEW in case you haven't, because they have almost 2,500 subscribers. And I would like you to join me in doing that. But let's get to the chat. I'll come back to this match. I think you've obviously explained plenty about a number of different things. I want people to say hello to you. I want to give you a couple things. I want to talk about some outside places before we come back here to NEW. And I really appreciate everybody for being here. Zilla is here first, and she wants to say hello to the DHC member, my real NEW Wrestling Hardcore Champion, the Hellhound Reya Silver. There you go. I put a couple of comments and saying hello to everybody, and thank you. Thank you, Zilla, for being here. Happy Friday to everybody, by the way, as well. Hope everybody's having a great day out there. And this guy who just wrestled in the ring and who I think is supposed to be down there in the throes of the Terminator death wanted to, I guess, while he's down there live, wanted to call you the greatest of all time. And yeah, you're definitely up there, no question.
I don't think I'm the greatest of all time. That definitely goes to that man, Jake Dvorak, and I wish him a lot of luck this weekend. He's got quite a bit of blood to shed, and I hope he comes out on top.
Yeah, he's going all over the place. He's going from Delaware to Connecticut, and I'm going to get to that in a few minutes. And Jake is a big topic, undoubtedly. And we'll say hello to everybody first. Want to say hello to Mr. Hubie Jenkins, our friends in Ohio, checking us out. Hello from the EWA. Hubie will be in the house Tuesday night. Very excited about that. And Joe Star did want to comment and say that it's her time. My sister is on a roll, and obviously John Cena wanted a picture with Joe Star. I'm sure you're aware of that. John Cena wanted to pay for a photo with Joe Star. I couldn't blame him, and I did put that on Instagram. And Joe is here, and Joe says hello. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And hello to Jake. Yes, hello to everybody out there. How we doing? I'm glad everybody's doing well. And this guy here, who I noticed is going to be a part of the All Out War match. I saw that recently announced Stefan Havoc, and he would like to say that your in-ring improvements have been crazy the last year. Do you feel the same way? Do you feel, and Gabe talked about this a couple of weeks ago when he was here. He had talked about the progress he had felt that everybody had kind of made here in NEW. Do you feel the same way, like your progress over the last year and such?
Um, NEW and a lot of wrestlers as a whole, you can see every so often we step it up a notch. You see by the end of the season it gets better, and then as soon as we start thinking we can do better, halfway through you see like a switch up, and everyone keeps improving. And you know, me myself, I definitely have felt like I've improved. I like to learn from everyone everywhere I go. Um, in Connecticut, I learned a lot from. I mean, in Mass, I learned a lot from Jake
We're gonna get
and
to Connecticut.
George.
Don't worry. I'm gonna mention it in a few
Yeah,
minutes. Don't worry.
so I learned a lot from them, and then I've been fine tuning my skills. I learned a bit from Doc, Gabe,
Yeah.
and Jimmy in Connecticut, and then in Jersey recently, I've gotten a bunch of tips and training with the Cheenies,
Oh
and
yeah. Oh my God, the Cheenies are
some
just.
advice from like Adam Bazaar and stuff like that. So I've everywhere I go, I'd like to pick the brain of people. If there's training happening, I'm never the type that's like, I don't need that. I'd like to, if I can, I would be like, you know what, I'm gonna join in and learn. There's always improvement. So I definitely think I'm my best right now because of all the different knowledge I've been taking from everywhere I've been going lately.
That's great. Now that's, you know what, that's great advice. And, I think everybody needs to, take that, because I think you go to different places and you really do, you learn. And I always go back to what my teachers used to always say. They'd say, you can always learn from somebody. And what you just said there, thank you for saying that. I hope a lot of people would take that advice. And hello, everybody. Thank you, Jake. And yes, Joe and Jake now say hello to each other on Sportswire. And he is also just chilling at the hotel, counting down the hours, yet which we just kind of referred to. Thank you very much, Waylon Jacobs. Reya is such a great talent. Hope to see her wrestle sometime. You're going to see her next Saturday wrestling in the NEW's All Out War, and she'll be pulling double duty. And you hit the sub button, and you'll be up there. Speaking of people, the hall monitor of Sportswire Radio is here, and holy moly, it's a member of GTS. You know what? I'm going to do it because my hall monitor's here, Justin Parsley, because I got this photo here. And maybe this rings a bell. Maybe you can, tell us a little bit about it, because I noticed that you were in this little company called GTS not too long ago, and you want to talk about what that experience was like, getting the opportunity to be a part of that machine.
That was definitely a different experience. As I said, went there, got to train with and get some advice from both of the Cheenies and Adam, and then we didn't know what we were doing that day. So then to be thrown in a match with two people that I have a lot of history with was definitely a interesting match. I think this is not the only time you're gonna see me in GTS. So there's definitely more to come after that Patreon match that you have seen.
Well, that'd be great, and it's funny that you talked about GTS. I had Castor on here. He talked about his experience. I know Christopher Black has been down there. Obviously, Doc has been a huge part of it. And Gabe was here before previously with the GTS Hardcore Championship. We know he lost it, and he certainly had his opinions on that. But it's funny that you talk about it and what people feel like about the experience of going down there. I had on Austin James, who wrestles in DBW, and he's wrestled in EBW Pro and some other places just down the road from GTS. And he talked about the experience of going down there, and it was really, really a positive experience. It was really an eye-opening experience, and it was, a once-in-a-lifetime kind of moment. And like for you, was it that much of a positive also, and just getting that opportunity to be a part of that and to eventually be seen where, it's the number 7 wrestling company in the world. We think about, like, I was hearing you talk about WWE and AEW. Not, I took nothing away from them, but GTS is the seventh biggest wrestling company out there, period, and they've got 1 million subs, and you're a part of that machine. That's got to be like a positive, like really like boost to you almost.
That definitely was a confidence boost to be able to get such an opportunity like that. Um, it's definitely a different experience. Than the other places I've been, but I met a lot of those people in Connecticut at TF so I already knew a lot of them. So it's it wasn't completely unfamiliar, but the way they do things is a lot different than I see a lot of places do, and that was definitely a fun experience. I enjoy a lot of the people there and getting to talk to them because a lot of them have experiences in different areas and stuff. So, they have a lot of good advice. And as I said, got to talk to the Genies, Adam, my homie Mage. I got to see her again. We never got our one-on-one match, but it's great to get to see her. And I'm happy for her return recently to GTS after her injury. But getting to be a part of that and seeing all those people again is definitely great. And from what I've been told, got some positive feedback. So
Right. Well,
maybe
I wouldn't
maybe
be
you see some
shocked.
things
Listen,
for me there.
you know what? I have no doubt that you'll be back in GTS, and that doesn't surprise me one bit that the positive vibes are going to continue. And, if Castor could go down there, Christopher Black was down there. Obviously, Doc's been a part of it, certainly Gabe, and you should definitely be there more often. And I want to give you something. I got a couple things to give you before I get to more people here in the chat. It's your day, Reya Silver. I'm not done, but it's your day. Congratulations on that. I'll give you the physical copy on all my platforms. It is your day. Thank you for all that you do for our sport. Thank you for everything. And that's one thing I've got in my arsenal. So we'll leave it up for a few minutes. And yeah, I can't wait to see you out there in more places, not just GTS. Thank you, Stefan Havoc. And same seeing SmackDown. Yeah, busy nights. SmackDown, NFL, here we got baseball, a lot of stuff. And please follow NEW on Instagram. We'd really appreciate that. Thank you. Abram Storm is in the house. The Thunderous One wants to say hello. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Hello to Justin Parsley. Yes, he'll be back here. And Bren is here, wants to say hello. And I agree. You have been killing it, and you're getting better and better. And I think that that's what I see from a lot of you. I look at the improvement. I was speaking with one wrestler that doesn't work in NEW, and he's obviously got some ties to GTS, and he was saying that really impressed with all you. You all want to learn. You all want to work. Again, somebody not in NEW, somebody I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of the talent that I know, and this one particular wrestler said NEW talent's very impressed with the, wanting to learn, wanting to be there, wanting to listen. Those are important stuff. So I think that speaks very highly on you and everybody else.
Yeah, a lot of us have the mentality, and we of we like to always be improving. We get a lot of people come in and out, and a lot of people who stick around are a part of the NEW family. A lot of companies say that, but we mean that. So a lot of us, we gel together well, and so you commonly see that, like, if one person has like that positive mentality of wanting to learn, it spreads to so many other people, and a lot of us have just that thing I said earlier about there's always more you can learn, and anytime anyone comes in and out, like we have a lot of people like Jake and Sorge, they're doing stuff elsewhere. They come back, they give us a lot of advice on what to do on the indies. You got Gabe who runs a company and he does a lot of training. So you see him come in with all his people, and he's commonly like while we're setting things up and talking about plans and stuff, you see him in the ring, training with Shima and Kuma or Castle. There's always like that mentality of like practicing, and
Yeah,
a lot of people don't have like that ego of I'm already good, I don't need to learn more. You always see like if people are practicing, other people would join in, and if they're not joining in, they're still keeping an ear open to
that's it.
hear the
Yeah,
advice that like Gabe, Doc, Jake, Sorge, and Sane and everyone has. We're learning from each other, and know, as a family, we're getting better by building off each other. We're not doing like a lot of places to have like, it's all about me. I'm on, others can go fuck themselves. I want to be the best one here. We all want NEW to be the best, not ourselves to be the best. And I'm glad that people are seeing that, that
yeah,
mentality is
absolutely. Yeah,
paying off.
There's no I in team, and I see a lot of you, different places. We see Caster, Christopher Black. We've seen what Kuma is going in different places. Obviously, you were in the match in GTS with him. Joe certainly. I mean, MJ Sears joined you guys. I mean, you have a lot of different people that Shima's improved a lot. So I mean, I think it speaks volumes to the character of all of you as individuals. Your brother as well, and there's no doubt in my mind that Reya Silver can join me and Sane as the third person to win 2 All-Out War Rumbles. She's been killing it. So there you go. You definitely have a very good chance. I definitely would give you a good chance because you've won it before and experience counts. Please follow Reya on Instagram. I'd really appreciate that very much. And my favorite NEW match is Reya vs. Surge. The emotions in that match were on a different level. The storytelling and the actions in that match, such an amazing match. Do you have any memories of that, and what did it mean to you?
That was the dog collar match, and that was definitely an emotional match. That one definitely, pulled from, real life into the match. And um we have done it before with face and face or him as heel. So turning it around with me as heel and him as face was definitely, a different mentality. And with the story we had and the motion that was put, it definitely was stood out to me as one of my like top 3 matches ever. So, you know, that was definitely a memorable match for me.
Yeah, and to be with Serge and obviously what he's done, and certainly Jake is not finished with him, and he's definitely not finished with him. And you certainly had some moments there as well, and I could see why they mean as much to you as it does to us. And obviously, hello, hello, and yeah, that's a good point. Got to be really interesting teaming up with a sibling. I mean, you certainly have a love hate relationship with the sibling, but now you've teamed and you've won championship gold, and that's got to be interesting. Yeah, it's got to be
I
really
think
interesting.
we'll I think we're better as a team because of that hatred we had for each other.
Ah,
Iron sharpens iron. Us clashing heads. We saw each other's weaknesses and our strengths, and we know how to utilize that against each other. So now we know, hey, bro, don't do this in this match. We like I utilize this against you. You got to make sure cover your weak
ah,
points. Like it's a different mentality when you facing somebody. Then what you try to break them down with. So it's
yeah.
definitely beneficial to have feuded in the past.
Yeah, it's a good point because in music it's kind of the same way with siblings. I think about Hailstorm, we think about them, and I think about famously in rock, Malcolm and Angus Young, and Malcolm Young, God rest his soul. I think about Eddie Van Halen and Alex Van Halen, God rest Eddie Van Halen. So I think about the Abbott brothers, Vinny and Dime, God rest their souls. That Oasis, I can't forget about Oasis, but I mean the Gallaghers. I think about just in sometimes just like in music, I get a lot of musicians on, and that sibling bond, whether it's brother sister, brother brother, sister sister, I think there's something that you and Tyson have that almost nobody else could have. I think that's why we could certainly see more of you down the road in the future. Thank you, Hubie, with that very good point. Yes, hello to everybody. Thank you, Michael Christians, tuning in, and from the good state of Indiana, wanted to say we'll always love tuning in. Thank you. We love you. We love everybody else out here with us tonight. Please support Reya. Go follow NEW if you'd like. We'd appreciate that very much. Speaking of people that have come through the doors of Worcester, Massachusetts, Mr. Torrance Banks, would like to say what's up, everyone in the chat, and yeah, what's going on? And Michael also wants to say, who's hearing from you probably for the first time, or at least not in recent memory, wanted to say he loves the name, and we love having you here, and we definitely do love you. And speaking of other people who want to travel soon, hopefully, Jay the Awesome, of course, from our friends in Buffalo, would like to say hello. Thank you, Jay, and he's definitely awesome, and he's definitely got gold again, and it is JTA, and I want to say hello. Thank you, Zilla, again. Princess Jade, who you say Justin Parsley, she's right behind, and that's Soldier GP's niece, for anybody's wondering. And there you go. And hello. And your brother is here, and your brother would like to tell everybody in caps locks that Kuma will lose that championship. Just want to let you know.
Yeah, he definitely did not take to
No.
losing to Kuma well, and I definitely think he's the my biggest supporter in beating Kuma. I think
Yeah,
he's a
he's got
little
quite. I know
biased
he's got
there.
history with him. Yeah, I could certainly see that, and obviously obvious reasons why. And hit the sub button for NEW, please. We really appreciate that very much. And thank you to Tyson Spade. Yes, and Hubie gave a sub. Thank you, Hubie, for your support. And speaking of people speak and they shall appear, and Doc Holliday, who obviously is such intertwined with all of you recently. Jake and him have had some wars, and maybe if Jake gets his way coming up this coming Sunday, maybe we'll see these two again in a different state. And I mean, what do you think about this Doc Holliday and Jake Dvorak war? I mean, it's been an all-out war literally between those two of the past few months. What's your thoughts on that?
They're two very entertaining competitors, both on the mic and in the ring. And personally, two of my like top five wrestlers I love to watch. So to me, I'm personally biased. These two can keep fighting forever. I totally think they bring out the best in each other. I love seeing them together. I have a lot of respect for Doc. Not just from the training I did with him, but I enjoy my matches with Doc,
Yeah.
and I definitely enjoy watching him, and I enjoy watching Jake. So it's always a pleasure when they get to mix it up.
What do you learn specifically from Doc? I hear from different people outside of NEW that Doc is like a locker room leader. Doc's been in our sport for 20 years. A man's done a lot of different things. The guys in the GBYWN certainly they are very fond of Doc and his history. And what do you, I guess maybe for a minute to break the fourth wall, what do you learn from Doc and what you've been doing?
Well, I learned, I did some in ring training. He was one of the people, you know, on the Connecticut side that I trained with, him and Gabe and Jimmy. So I learned a lot from him, wrestling wise, cleaning up my craft that I've already learned in Mass and in other places. So there's that, and the advice he's given, and he's just like a very genuine, like nice human being. He's very chill, and
And then you
he
see
has
him in the ring, right?
yeah, it's very interesting. Hearing his perspectives on wrestling, and um, he definitely. I have a lot of respect for him, so I definitely like listening to him. When I went to TF Crew, and I had an impromptu match with him, and he was all down to go for as ever long as we wanted. He for a veteran, a lot of them don't want to take certain things and stuff. Doc's like, do whatever you fucking want to me, kick the shit out of me, and I very much respect the veteran that has like a giving mentality that
Yeah.
you don't always see. And I had to inform him that like multiple times, like it was like a 6 minute match, but like I respected the fact that he was just like, fuck it, do whatever you want, and I respect the mentality that I love. You know, you go to a lot of places and you see the veterans kind of are
Yeah.
gatekeeping wrestling from the wrestlers, and he is never the type to do that. He wants you to get your lick in. He is not out there to just make himself into a star. He definitely, sells well for his opponents. And, I respect that a veteran gives back to people.
Absolutely, and I think that that's what is so cool about him being here in a company like NEW to be here, and I think that that's gonna much longer after he's done in the ring. You're all gonna get that experience and that knowledge, and I think that that's what it's all about. Wrestling, I've said for 5.5 years I'm doing this, is an apprenticeship, and Doc is certainly teaching all of you well, which is why you're all awesome. And hello, yes, the Doc is in, the good Doc is in. And I agree with that comment. Reya Silver's definitely, listen, you definitely get a good crowd tonight. And you are here, and acknowledge your Halloween, Tribal Chief. And, it's crazy. I saw Halloween lights going up here in Brooklyn and Staten Island the last week. And I'm like, wow, time is flying. I still want to, go in my pool for another few more days. But
I'm much more of a Halloween fan. I was
yeah.
really watching Halloween 5 the other day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm all for Halloween being here.
Well, my mother just visited Martha's Vineyard where Jaws was shot. So, that's, that she was big into Halloween, and I could see why. But congratulations, Ray. Well, we're not done. And me and Ray will be unstoppable forever. Well, there's no question that. And no, I'm not in the wrestling promoting business. No, I'm good. Thank you, Zilla. Though let's just
Listen,
keep
you at
me.
least got to be like a ring announcer one of these days, or
You
like a
know what?
commentator.
You never know. Well, commentating is a possibility. It's certainly a possibility. But you know what? I do want to talk about Connecticut, but I got something for you, and I think you deserve it. And I want to put it up on the screen now because you know what? I've decided that you need to be in the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. You've done so much for our sport. I know you would have just been happy with the day, but I think what you've done out there, what you have done in putting your body out there for our sport, I think for what you've done in representing NEW and everything that you're going to do in the ring, to me, this is a no-brainer. This is a layup. Congratulations. And I think the best is yet to come for you.
Thank
And
you.
you're in the Hall of Fame. I know you're in it with the company already, but I wanted to do this tonight. And you deserve it. And thank you for all that you do representing our sport. Thank you for everything that you put your body through and all the wrestlers that are here in the chat. And I wanted you to have this moment. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, all right. I got to talk about Connecticut because, I saw Joe Starr talk about this Day of Atonement. I think you were kind of name dropped in there. And so everybody, it seems like left and right, is going from NEW and elsewhere. Is it the TF Cruz Day of Atonement? Jake, B and Sane are in a match together. Obviously, I've seen, Castor was here. He talked about his match with Leonidas by another guy I can't forget. Doc's here. Of course, he's wrestling LJ Wash. He's the Tomorrow's End champion. And I got to ask you, I mean, what do you think about all this? And what's your plans coming up this Sunday?
Well, I've been at TF Crew before, and I definitely would say keep your eyes peeled because that was not my final TF Crew appearance. And you
Oh,
can expect to see me looking around TF Crew this Sunday. And, you might see DHC uniting in another company.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna certainly say we'll leave it at that. But apparently, Castor wanted to rain in on your parade and say, "I came to say Reya is a dark horse." Fill in the blanks because you've got history with Castor. You've also been in the ring with him, and we talked about that before. And what do you want to say to Castor there about that? I would have thought he would have said hello, thank you for it's good to see you, but instead, this is what the guy does. I thought this is standing up for your greatness tonight. He already had his time.
I have nothing to say to Castor. I respect Castor and I respect what he does. Him and his tag team partner. He can make his little jokes, but as of right now, the DHC are the tag team champions, not him and Christopher Black. So
Well, they talked a
it's a
lot
little
about that.
salty.
That's a great point because I'm sure you heard they talked about winning those championships. And Caster, he wants to be a double champion. He's got a shot potentially. He's got a shot at Gabe Sayers. And on top of that, he would like those tag team championships. This guy, he all of a sudden, he wants it to be the life of Caster. I mean, this guy, he wants to rain on the DHC's fun. I mean, that can't be good.
He can try, but he has a friend by his side. DHC is family, and we're prepared for those two. He has to prepare for any combo of 5 people. We got all different strengths, different sizes, different wheelhouses, and he can't prepare for DHC. He can't prepare for the numbers advantage we have. He can keep sticking together with his TF crew homies, but at the end of the day, they're not going to
They're
topple the
outsiders. Listen, we talked
DHC.
about this on Sportzwire. They're outsiders. They're coming in here and they want to take over the company that you've built. You and your brother and
I view
James.
them as take over. They're not trying to take over NEW, but I will say there is definitely a union
Well,
against the
want
DHC.
gold. But they want gold. That would be certainly in a way taking away from the DHC. I would think you would agree on that.
They deserve gold. They deserve gold. Gabe deserves gold, but they don't deserve it if the DHC has it. When we're in the running, we're the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 contenders for the belt. So they deserve gold, but when the DHC's on the roster, they don't deserve jack shit. And they're not going to get it. And I respect them. I respect Gabe. It's just a matter of they're building a union against the DHC. It's not TF2 versus NEW. It's all of NEW versus the DHC.
There was a mention, it's funny you said that because Caster talked about Gabe has been kind of leading the charge against the DHC, and he talked about locker room leadership, and that's got to be something that you want to push back against because, I mean, you see it differently.
We tried to push back, and we set our sights on people like Leo, Kuma, Gabe, and they never, they maybe won a match, but they never took a chip off the DHC until recently. They took the World Championship, they took the Hardcore Championship, but we're not deterred. As long as we stay united, this is the best version of the DHC yet, so they can get those small victories, but the DHC is going to win the war.
Well, that's a great point because we have the All Out War next Saturday, and what the old adage always is in life is that you may have won the battle, but you didn't win the war, and at the end of the day, Caster talked about the All Out War, but really the numbers are against him and anybody else that tries because you may have said, sure, he's got a friend in the Connecticut Crippler, Christopher Black, but you've got 5 of you. There's 5 of you, and there's only, let's say, 2 of Caster and Christopher Black, or you want to throw Shima in there, you want to throw Kuma, anybody else out there. They're not all what you have. They can't see what you can see because they don't have it. They don't have those things, and that's why maybe Caster, I mean, he doesn't know what he's getting into.
Listen, if people want to doubt what the DHC can do, we showed firsthand. Look at the main event of Cyber Takeover.
Yes.
That main event didn't happen because DHC decided to stay. No, we didn't want it to happen.
No.
And we can do that at any point we want. We can shape NEW in any form we want, and they should just be happy that we haven't decided to wield that power more often because they're not united. They can unite for moments, but this NEW union will never be able to beat what the DHC has, and we proved that because we just decided, no, we don't want that world championship.
You guys have done that so many times throughout the last several months. We've seen shows where the locker room was decimated. Nobody could stand in your way. You want to talk about all these different things. that maybe recently have gone on, but it still pales into comparison what the five of you have all done of late. So really, at the end of the day, to me, what's going to happen next Saturday is you're all going to be united, and it's going to go back to the way it was a few weeks ago.
Yeah, we were, we had our issues. We lost a couple belts, There's a little, shadow happening,
But the pressure's also
with
got to be on Gabe.
saying,
That's a great point because the pressure, I said this to Gabe when he was here a couple of weeks ago, Reya, is that sure, Gabe may have found a way to squeak by being sane, but now he's got to face that pressure of being on top. He hasn't been there before. He's never had a championship like this before. He's never. So now you're going to throw everything at him, and this could make things worse.
yeah, and we literally have a chance to decide whoever we want to go face him at Star Clash. Like, people should already count on DHC is winning that match. And, we got, we can give him Be Insane. He can get that rematch. He's a big guy. That's a hard man to eliminate from the Rumble. You got like Joe. We can decide him to face. We can face Jake and Gabe in a rematch at All Out.
And we know Jake's history with Gabe. And we know Jake's history with Gabe. Oh, I mean, could you imagine that? I mean, Jake would love to add another championship to his collection and what he's been doing recently. I mean, oh my goodness. You talked about Joe Starr. We know what he's done. I mean, your brother, any of you have all that have experience with either winning this match or in the ring with Gabe. I mean, to me, Gabe's got even more pressure than he's ever felt in his career, I think.
Yeah, it's he knows that I'm guaranteeing he knows that DHC has a chance that we're just gonna dominate this match. He's gonna be keeping his eye out, and he's probably already trying to make a game plan. You got 5 shots of who it could be, and it's just the question is not if DHC will win; it's who's gonna win.
Yeah, it's how and how, where, when, and what. I think that's why I think at the end of the day, his days are numbered because I think you're all going to use this. I think what I've learned tonight before we get to closing thoughts is that you're going to be now more united as a group. You're going to be more fired up because sure, you may have lost something short term, but now long term, this is going to unify the DHC. Sure, there may have been some things you've been going through recently in the ring, the last few matches, the level of doubt. That's all put to bed because next Saturday is going to start what the Hellhound's going to do. We certainly know Joe Starr. I mean, Jake, he's always cooking. I mean, you got your brother. And certainly Be Insane. Yeah, I definitely would not want to be insane and go and step front to him in the ring. So ultimately, at the end of the day, it's now we're starting anew. We're starting anew. And I think that all 5 of you are going to be literally going to be even more dominant. That could be the worst thing to happen. Listen, we see it all the time. The biggest pressure for anybody is going from being the hunter to the hunted. Gabe is that. You're going to start with Kuma also. Kuma's days are definitely numbered here coming up as hardcore champion. And your brother says it here. The DHC will run every place in the other night. Listen, that could be GTS. That could be Connecticut. That could be New Jersey. That could be anywhere, anytime, anywhere, any place. That could be where you be. And I'm with Jake. You are definitely cooking. And also, Hubie, thank you for the super chat. You didn't have to, but he did want to say congratulations, Reya, and Hall of Fame. Yes, yes, yes. And all wrestling matters. Thank you, Hubie, for putting that up. And thank you, Reya, for all you've done for our sport. So, all right. So I want to ask you a couple more things. So obviously, coming up here, you got any final words for Kuma coming up first?
I want him to remember this last season when him and Shima won the vacant tag team championships in a tag team match that involved 3 teams. We didn't forget that match, and so we made it our mission to take those tag team titles that could have been won by the DHC. He thought that was bad when he took a title that we didn't have. Now he took a belt that we had. It's only going to be worse than what he felt at the beginning of this season. He saw what we did to get the tag team championships. Now imagine what we're going to do to get that belt back.
Ooh, that's a very, Very interesting point. And I think what I learned the last 10 minutes is the pressure of being a champion and that adjustment. And I think that that's what Kuma especially is going to face, because he's going to see the hellhound here, the hellhound like you've never seen before. And that's a 3-time hardcore champion, by the way, that we're dealing with, the person that has been the definition of that division, which is why you want to hit that sub button for me when it comes to NEW if you're here in the chat. I want to ask you also, before I get to closing thoughts, then I'll ask you one more question. What would it mean to you to win the All Out War match this year?
I walked into All Out War and I went into Star Clash as for the Undisputed Championship as the hardcore champion before. And I think I'm about to rewrite history and do it all over again. Go into a war, win the hardcore championship, win the All Out War match, and I'm going to walk in and face for the Undisputed Championship again. And this time, last time I lost to Jake. This time, I have Jake by my side, and I'm going to win the main event. And, a lot of people are not going to be, despite the fact that I've won the match before, I feel like a lot of people's focus is going to be on, Jake and saying, the bigger people. Everyone focuses on the bigger people in the Rumbles, and the smaller people kind of who are trickier, to eliminate because they're much more, nimble and not harder to, get out because they can grab on the rope like a big person can't. Everyone's going to be throwing out the big people. And that's why I'm going to sneak in and win.
Yeah, no, I think that, you know what? Before we get to close, that's a good point. And I hadn't thought about that going into our conversation. Because, you think about everyone's going to focus on being Insane. Obviously, understandably why, because he was the undisputed champion. He wants to get that back. Obviously, Jake and his size, his experience, a guy like Caster being in there, a guy with, his size, you're going to think about those that are going to be in there that have that strength, that size. But really, it's someone like you and others, but especially someone like you, Reya, who's got that agility, who's got that quickness, who's got that ability to kind of pick your spot and kind of figure out where in the ring that, what, maybe I want to, hold back. Maybe I want to pull it back. Maybe I want to dial it down, because you're going to see the focus on all those big guys. You want to throw Joe in there as well. So that gives you an advantage here coming up that I think a lot of people might say, keep an eye on that. That's a good point. Yeah. And that's a good point.
I'm a smart wrestler. I'm very vicious, and I'm calculated in my movements in the ring. I will pick my moment, and I think people will see a true opportunist, at work when I sneak in and take the win.
And you got a new kendo stick coming out there. That's something to pay attention to also. Out with the old, in with the new. That's a good point too. I mean, listen, so we're all starting anew, literally. I think that that's something we're going to pay attention to. So I'm excited. I'm really excited about what's ahead here next Saturday. I'm very excited about it. And I want everybody to follow Reya before we get to closing thoughts here. And you can do that on Instagram. And please also support NEW. And yes, thank you, Hubie, once again for for that. And please support NEW on YouTube. And you have anything else you want to say before closing thoughts? Anything else you want to get off your chest, or anything else you want to tell anybody out there before we sign off and get to closing thoughts?
The only thing I would say, looking at that kendo stick is, I'm very, and you talked about what I've done for wrestling, I just like to say I'm very thankful for, how NEW has, a lot of companies aren't the best with transgender people. So I gotta say a thank you again for, NEW for giving me this opportunity as a trans woman, and, thank the wrestling fans. I've heard the comments. I've gotten so many DMs over, I've wrestled in New York, 2 places in Connecticut, now in Jersey, I've wrestled in Mass, and I've gotten so much positive feedback. Obviously, I've gotten negative, but, I've gotten so many people, you talked about my impact in wrestling, and I always say that's my
I had a question. I
best
was
impact.
because you brought it up. I'll let you finish, and I'm going to ask it. I wasn't
Yeah,
going to, but I'm going to ask it. You'll probably want me to ask it, but go ahead
yeah.
because I think it'll be a
Um,
positive question I ask you. But go ahead.
yeah, it was just seeing that kind of stuff, and you talking about the positive impact. I will always say that was my biggest positive impact was hearing the feedback from fans and other LGBTQ wrestlers about seeing me and the impact I made on them. And that will always be something I'm thankful for. And I will have to say I wouldn't have been able to have the impact I've had if it wasn't for NEW and people like Jake, Soldier and Stain, giving me that opportunity. And on that note, also thankful to Leo, who gave me my first shot in NEW, and Spade, who gave me my first shot in wrestling. I would like to thank them as well.
Sure.
And I would like to thank my rival Kuma for getting me into the door at GTS, and thank Gabe for the opportunity in Connecticut.
So I'm going to ask you this question, and it's the last one, and we'll sign off. But I wasn't going to ask it because I felt like if it comes up, it comes up. But if I were to say to you, you're a role model, what would that mean to you? If I said to you, you were a role model, do you consider yourself a role model?
I have heard it, and I've
Okay.
heard that from multiple, wrestlers. A trans wrestler told me recently about how I helped them to get back into wrestling. And I've heard that from fans. And like for trans and LGBTQ people, and
Sure.
I've heard that I'm a role model. I don't think I am. I'm very hard on myself, so I don't see myself as a role model, but I am happy that other people do.
Well, you may not because you go out at an everyday basis, it's who you are, but to other people that watch NEW or have seen you in other places that may not have had the opportunity or they may not know you, but they see you on a screen, doing what you do to them, that might give them that hope, that might give them that confidence, that ability to say, I can do it. I think in wrestling, it's the sport that most you have that opportunity, I think, versus the other major sports. So you may, because you're going out on an everyday basis, you're out there in the ring with everybody. It's to you, it's second nature. It's who you are. And you've obviously been, thankfully as accepted as you've been. And, we certainly thank you and we love what you do. And I know you're obviously your locker room feels that way. But I think to those
That's for
that,
one person in the locker room in the past, but
well,
he no longer
terminated.
works at NEW, so
Okay, well, I'm gonna leave that at that. I'm gonna stick off that. But what I am gonna, say is that to everybody out there that may not be a part of NEW, they from afar watch someone like you and into them. It might, give them that ability to say, I can go out there and do it. So you may like on a daily basis not see yourself as one, but to many that watch you in NEW, you very well are.
yeah, and I definitely thank NEW for that opportunity. I wrestled in a place in a small backyard company in Connecticut where there were some people that wasn't the most accepting, and to go from that to the platform I got on NEW, and I'm only a role model because of NEW and the opportunity and the fact that they treat me like an equal. So if you want to say I'm a role model, I would definitely say it's because of NEW. So
Oh, you know
especially
what?
people like Jake, who was I think I would definitely say I owe my career to Jake.
Well, you know what? Obviously, that's a credit to them, and that's a credit to you also for believing in yourself and going out there. And I think that it's obviously beneficial, and that's why before we sign off here, it is your day, and we want to thank you and congratulate you. I'll give you the physical copies when we're off the air, and also I put you in the Hall of Fame, and you are definitely a role model and an inspiration. And I think that that's why you are absolutely worthy and well deserving to be in the Hall of Fame. And thank you, Hubie, for this. And I think that kind of puts a bow on it. So we'll give you this more off the air. And thank you for all that you do. Let me pass the baton to you. Let me give you some closing thoughts and anything else you want to plug, share, or say. The floor is yours, and take it away.
Um, on behalf of Gabe, please buy tickets to Day of Atonement this weekend.
I bought one. So to be fair, I've definitely I've bought one, and please, yeah, definitely somebody will go on my behalf. So yeah, buy another ticket, buy another one.
Yeah, I think he's gonna have a heart attack if people don't buy more tickets. So
Well,
everybody,
maybe if
go
I'm in
buy
a
your
let's see how I
tickets.
feel tomorrow. Maybe I'll buy him one more ticket. Maybe that'll convince him to come to Sportswire again. So maybe that'll work. So maybe we'll buy one more ticket tomorrow. But don't tell Gabe. We're not live, so we won't tell him.
But I have no more closing remarks. Just had to
You know
get
what?
one more joke in there.
That's actually the best remark left to say because yeah, please go buy tickets to Sunday's show because I can handle the rest from here. Don't you worry. You go focus on doing what you do in the ring. But yeah, definitely buy a ticket. Maybe I'll buy one more, and everybody else can join me in doing so. But that is Reya Silva. She is the newest member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. We're going to see her in action here, coming up in a different few places. Maybe you'll see her coming up on Sunday. You'll most certainly see her next Saturday over in NEW's return for the All Out War. You'll see her compete for the Hardcore Championship in the rubber match against Kuma. We'll see if he continues to be the Golden Boy. We'll also see Reya in the All Out War match, plus a number of other things. So please support her. And I'll be back here tomorrow a couple of times. I'm here with somebody that you shared a locker room with before, Kato. Kato will be here tomorrow night at 9:30.
Oh
Kato is
yeah,
back. Kato is back, yes, with Naomi, and he'll talk about a few things that I said on
that's
a
okay.
few days ago. Kato's a great guy, and I'll be here with a boxer. I have no idea. I have a boxer on before. I have no idea. I know a little bit about him, but I know nothing much about him. But his name's Paulo Cruz, and apparently he knocks people out in Portugal. But he'll probably want to knock me out after that. But we'll have fun with it. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please follow Reya. Please follow NEW. Have a great night and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on the number one global radio station that is Sportswire Radio, where all music and wrestling matters.